The election is going to come down to a small group of undecided voters in only about 7 states, basically. People who tend not to be diehard partisans, because if they were, they'd already know who they're voting for. And a key part of President Joe Biden's 2020 victory was convincing enough conservative or Republican voters to cross party lines and support him in states like Georgia and Arizona. It's a strategy that Harris Walz's campaign is, of course, trying to emulate. The Democratic convention featured many Republicans backing Harris and trying to create a kind of permission structure to their fellow party members to do the same.
Now, I'm not left-wing, period. But I believe our leaders should bring out the best in us, not the worst. That's why I'm voting for Kamala Harris. She's tough. She's going to tackle inflation. Trump will make it worse. I'm voting for Kamala Harris because she'll make us proud to be American again.
Kyle Sweetser is a 2-time Trump voter from Alabama, publicly backed Harris, the DNC, as you just heard. Robert Nix is a former Trump voter from Pennsylvania, and they're now involved with the group Republican Voters Against Trump, who put them on billboards urging their fellow Republicans not to back the former president, and they joined me now. It's good to have you gentlemen both. Welcome to the program.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Kyle, let me start with you because if I'm not mistaken, you live in Alabama, which is a pretty conservative place. Trump's going to win there by 20 points or something like that. And you are a 2-time Trump voter. And I guess I tend to think people that went back the second time, 16, 20, pretty locked in, but not you. What changed your mind?
Yeah, so I voted in for Trump in 2016. I thought he was a good change of pace. I thought the people, especially down here, were not well represented. In 2018, we had those steel tariffs, and those started to affect some products. So I got to see the firsthand effects of those probably before anyone else. The inflation started then. And in 2020, after all the things that Trump said, I was actually kind of holding my nose to vote for him, kind of to beat the Democrats, that kind of thing. So I just assumed he was going to go away. I assumed it was over with, especially after January 6th. And, in 2022, when I started paying closer attention to geopolitics and what was going on in the world, I started to really look at Trump's record, especially on foreign policy and the things that he said, and his coddling of dictators and enemies, essentially the United States. And I started to look really close at his record, and he's a disaster.
Robert, you were a Trump voter, I think, in Pennsylvania in 2016, and then did vote for President Joe Biden in 2020. Is that right?
I did. I voted for Biden. I did, in fact, like Kyle said, I held my nose and I voted for Biden, but because I simply couldn't bring myself to vote for Trump. In fact, the reason I'm involved with Republican Voters Against Trump and on billboards and writing op-eds is because I think I'm trying to atone for even voting for Trump in 2016 and make up for my mistake.
And there's some people, I think, who would maybe sort of go from Trump and vote for Biden. Maybe they come back in the fold or not. But you're now devoted. What was it for you that pried you away from Trump?
Well, initially, I mean, from his very first term, I began to see the problems right away with the undermining of the press, undermining of the Constitution, in particular the rule of law, in particular the checks and balances that hold our government together. He's flaunted all of that, and it looked like we were headed towards disaster, just in his first term. And then came, and then I couldn't vote for him after that, but then came the loss of 2020 where he created the big lie. He's instigated an insurrection. I thought, how can he possibly even run in 2024, much less how people could support him? So, yeah, I am appalled as I watched the Republican Party that I've been involved with for 44 years, and not just as a voter, but I've run it for office as a Republican. I've helped Hispanic outreach all over the state of Pennsylvania, with Bush, going back to Bush Cheney in 2004, helping Senator Santorum and Specter with Hispanic outreach, the Republican State Committee working for them doing Hispanic outreach, and now, to see what the Republican Party has been reduced to by Trump is just, it turns my stomach and it appalls me. And so, yes, I could never vote for him again. And I work very hard to try to make as many people as I can aware of the problems that we're facing here. It's not the issues. It's the over problem of the destruction of our form of government is what I fear. And then I think too many people think it's just a normal race between Democrats and Republicans, and I got to go with issues like immigration, inflation, or Israel, or abortion. But those aren't. We can get by with bad policy. We can survive it, as Liz Cheney said, but we can't survive the undermining and trampling of our Constitution. That's the basis for what I believe in now.
It's so interesting to listen to you two gentlemen, because there's this kind of, I think, a little tired and trite, pundit conventional wisdom that, like, voters, the real voters, don't care about things like foreign policy, democracy. They care about kitchen table issues. And yet here you are both talking about how your trajectories, one talking about foreign policy, you, Robert, talking about democracy. Let me come back to you on that, Kyle, on foreign policy. It's interesting you mentioned that. Because a lot of times, again, the conventional wisdom is like, people don't really care that much about it. Well, what specifically was there? Like, was it the Ukraine war? Was there something where you started to be like, this is not right, that got you?
Yeah, so I just started to pay attention to Trump and basically his orbit and the things they say. And it was startling how they were pretty much pushing the same talking points as Russia. I started to look back at Trump's record on, S-230, trying to come after freedom of speech and tie it into funding in 2020. Just all those things and the tariffs and the trade and all that. I don't think people really understand that a lot of these things affect the prices that we have now, and they cause inflation. Yes. It's just wild that there's not enough effort to educate voters on how important foreign policy is, how important trade policy is, and really how that Trump himself has completely thrown out conservative economic and trade policies. He's not fiscally responsible. If you look at the current rate or the federal budget, I think that he's proposed is 5 times what the Democrats have proposed. That's insane. In 2020, Trump he had the single highest year rate of murder rate in 2020. So he's not a law and order president.
Yeah, and that point about tariffs, I mean, he's proposing right now, at a minimum, a 10% sale tax on every imported good in the country, which I think is underappreciated. Robert, let me give a last question to you in the little bit of time we have here. I know how you feel about Trump. You were a Republican. There's a crucial down ballot race in your state. David McCormick is running against the incumbent Democratic senator there. What is your feeling about that race?
Well, it's for me, if you have been endorsed by or endorsed Trump, you're tainted with the same problem that has taken over the entire Republican Party. There's only a very few Republicans left, in my view, and they include Liz Cheney or Larry Hogan or Adam Kinzinger and everybody else. If you're going to endorse, I mean, just to see even Haley, after she dropped out, endorse Trump, then made me sick. So, yes, Dave McCormick is tainted in my view as well. The only way to fix the Republican Party is almost like to burn it down to the ground and start over. And anybody who's either endorsed or supporting him or in any way affiliated with Trumpism we have to start over. It's like a mattress with bed bugs. You think you can spray it with insecticide. You think maybe you can steam, but no, you got to burn it and throw it out and start over. And so that's how I feel about anybody who's been endorsed by or endorses or supports or stands on the same stage with Trump.
Yeah, time for a new mattress, Kyle Sweetser and Robert Nix.